before we get started, we will first be introducing ourselves. So, hi, my name is Ali. I'm a senior from Miriam College High School. I'd like to believe that I've been doing advocacy related work since at least my sophomore year in high school, but my passion for different advocacies can be traced back to as early as middle school. Some of the work I've been doing includes, but is not limited to crafting a policy paper for a local community, writing editorials for different advocacies, and teaching/researching for educational discussions in my math organization. While I think that I care about quite a lot of things. My primary advocacies have to deal with quality education empowered by the social sciences and the intersections of media and culture with human rights. Like most people in this workshop, I am a student, which means that in no way do I proclaim myself as some beacon of knowledge by holding this workshop. You have all come here to learn, and I hope you will be able to do so, but know that I am here to learn from all of you as well. I will now be giving the floor to my co-host, Gabby.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabrielle Dagan. I'm 17 years old, a STEM senior high school student in the Philippine Science High School Central Visayas campus. So actually, I've been an advocate for a while now. I have published content and projects for numerous youth organizations and have started numerous initiatives as well. And I'm very excited to be doing this talk with all of you, and I hope we can all learn together.
All right. So before we actually get started with the workshop proper, we will first be having an icebreaker because we want to know our audience more, and we feel that this workshop and this topic in general is something that needs a lot of opinions from our audience. So for our icebreaker, you can choose one, two, or all of these questions. So and you can answer them either through the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourselves and then share your responses on any of these questions. So yes. So for our questions, we have what is/are your advocacies? What advocacies do you want to learn more about? And have you been engaging in projects to further these advocacies? If yes, feel free to elaborate on these projects. Keep in mind that later at the end of our workshop, we will be giving all of you an avenue to promote or plug any projects related to advocacies that you guys may have, so we may be able to further we may be able to help you guys in any way we can. So yeah, if anyone wants to answer these questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves or type it in the chat box.
Guys.
Use the raise hand or oh,
So
okay, there are more.
personally, for me, my personal advocacy is women empowerment, and I'm still trying to create projects and joining different organizations that involve these projects. So yes, I'm truly passionate about. Okay, so yes, I'm actually part of numerous organizations, and yeah, I'm also a part of WeTech, which promotes women in technology, and also Developh, which also promotes youth with technology. And yeah, how about you, Ali?
Okay, so outside of Develop, I'm involved in the initiative PH, and a while ago I mentioned this mass org, and it happens to be Kabataan Party List the Katipunan Senior High School chapter out. And then aside from this, I also lead this project called Socially Distant Stories, a COVID-19 story sharing platform that aims to share submitted stories from different demographics, which we will be discussing further later. So again, we are asking our audience to answer any of these questions. We are asking our audience to answer any of these questions through either verbally. Feel free to unmute yourselves. We would love to hear your voices on any of these things, or through chat if you guys don't have access to proper audio and mic if you guys don't have proper access to your microphones. So yeah.
Hello?
Oh,
Oh my God.
hello. Hi.
Hello? Hi. Oh my gosh! Na-excite ako. Hello, KPL Katim. Ah!
Hi.
Hello. What's up, guys? So, can you believe I'm here? Me talking again on I'll just develop a Zoom thing. Okay, so I am Josh. If you think I look familiar, I did that talk on like ano ba yun? What was the title? Was I did a talk on like activism and like how mass orgs like KPL and Anak Bayan use online online stuff. Yeah, tech for collective action. Yeah, I was the speaker for that one. So yeah, I think nakalimutan ko. So um ayun, so things a little bit of things changed. So during that talk, I was like ED, Educational Discussion Officer of Anak Bayan Vito Cruz. Now I am Gabs Hands chairperson of Anak Bayan Vito Cruz. So a lot of things changed. My advocacy basically, I think right now student rights. And I'd like to say yeah, student rights and welfare so far as a student, since that's I've been really passionate about uh you know students and how they deserve so much better. So I was like one of the people leading the campaigns in DLSU about the stopping of like the 6% tuition fee hike. And it was a success naman. It that was like there were only two times the tuition fee hikes were stopped. That was in 1980 something, and then now. So advocacy is like student rights and welfare really important right now, especially in a pandemic. And I'd like to learn more about hmm maybe any kind of advocacy. Let's learn as much advocacies as possible. And yeah, Anak Bayan so far is my like main ad- main org, but like I've been taking part of other organizations like Developh and organizations inside the university I'm in, which is DLSU. So to engage and link these organizations inside and outside the university to struggle for social change. So ayun lang.
All right, thank you so much for that, Josh. It's super
Thank
exciting
you.
to like be here with someone who's also part of a mass org. Before anything else, I'd just like to ask, what was your favorite ED that you've taught so far?
Okay. So far my favorite is I always do like espesyal na kursong masa. Tapos one recent thing I like doing was this ED on art and society, which tackles an essay by Alice Guillermo. It's really fun and yeah. So
All right, thank you so much for that. So right now I'll be reading out some of the responses that have been sent over the past few minutes as Josh was speaking and as Gabby and I were speaking. So hold on, I am losing. So some Moira Lopez said she advocates for silence for the masses, and then scrolling through here Gwendolyn Allen says that innovating thinking approaches as applied to student governance, working for each one to teach one foundation each one teach one foundation rather, sorry, which organizes personal developments and leadership camps for girls in Mindanao. Oh, that seems like that is a very interesting initiative. Would love to hear more about it
Yeah.
after this workshop. Ivan says that one of my advocacies is the promotion of critical thinking. As such, I want to learn more about how to deal with having to compromise with various cultures, norms, etc., which may not necessarily be harmonious to critical thinking, but nevertheless cannot be ignored. I am an aspiring novelist, and as such, I join these types of events in order to learn how fellow advocates do their stuff and improve my own. As such, I have several questions later, which I hope the speakers and fellow participants alike can answer or at least share their thoughts about. Thanks. Thank you for that, and we are looking forward to your question. Sammy says hi, and I mainly advocate, sorry, for the environment and regenerative agriculture. You'd love to learn more about women empowerment, and you've recently finished our webinar on sustainable development entitled Project Between. Oh, that's the DAEW thing from TIFF. Okay, that's very cool. Thank you for that. And then Isabella from Develop's core team says that she advocates for educational equity and environmental sustainability. Angel says mental health awareness. She was part of her university's commission on mental health, specifically our initiative called Humans of Ateneo. Yes, I've heard and seen Humans of Ateneo. I admire the work that they've put out, and I was the one who you interviewed Vico Sota. would have that oh, sorry that's something that's something to take note of. And yeah, highlight of my life, it would have been yes, sorry, moving forward. So I don't think I can read I don't think in order to like move through the different parts of our workshop more fluidly, I can't read out most of the other advocacies that will come, but I am grateful to know that a lot of you guys hold a lot of very concrete, very concrete and relevant advocacies right now. And I'm also really glad that a good amount of them also intersect with the technology perspective, which is something that Develop loves dealing with, like the intersection of technology and advocacy, which we will be dealing with later. So before we do get started for real now, we have this outline to be this overview of what we will be discussing throughout this workshop. So what is advocacy? Advocacy in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, the dangers of making spreading awareness as your primary mission, how to properly create impact, how Develop translates its advocacies, and some examples. So I will be giving the floor again to my co-speaker Gabby to discuss the first point, what is advocacy?
So I've seen all of your replies on the first icebreaker, and honestly, they're so amazing. And so before we dwell on the whole turning impact into advocacy thing, I want to ask each of you guys, what does advocacy mean to all of you? So since you guys replied with your advocacies, I'm sure you all have your own meaning of what advocacy means. So if you can chat in the chat box, that would be great. Oh, hi Adam. Abram, sorry. Hi Abram. So yeah, if you guys could like chat your what advocacy means to all of you, that would be great. Guys. Okay, so since no one is commenting, I'm going to move on to the next, which is yes,
Oh,
all of
Isabella
the
said something.
oh Isabel.
Taking concrete action on a cause because you believe in it. Ivan also says
Oh
advocacy is a policy-oriented passion born from one's accumulated learning experience.
yes,
And then
that's
we will be waiting for more responses on this in general, but we will also be moving forward with the workshop flow regardless. We will be taking do keep in mind that we will be taking into account everything you guys say, and we value every output and opinion and perspective you guys have on advocacy as a whole.
so yes, these everything that you guys mentioned and these things that's on the screen are all synonyms of advocacy, and also yes, all of them are correct. So next, we're going to the main general definition of advocacy. So it is the public support for a particular cause. So this particular cause could actually range from anything. So you can have mental health, animal welfare, yeah, people youth empowerment, and yes, basically anything. You get my point. So advocacy is not only like the rallies that we see on TV, then they're also not always necessarily donation drives, which need quite a huge amount of funds, and you don't need a huge amount of funds in order to create social change. So that's basically my point. So you all might be wondering what exactly is effective advocacy and how to actually achieve it. So that is basically the whole topic of this presentation. And to move further, effective advocacy is basically creating social change. And yes, if you go through the whole if for the whole duration of the presentation, we will be talking about ideas and how to create and how you can become an effective advocacy, effective advocate, I mean. So yes, of course, we all want to become effective advocates because you all are here in this presentation. So yes, let's all learn together. So before we dwell further, I want to describe the characteristics of an effective advocate, since that's that's like the starting point from here. So effective advocates are fact finders. That's pretty self-explanatory. They do research on the things that they're advocating about. Yeah. And they're also good listeners. They hear what other people are saying, and they understand each and every person's like perspective on things. They're also passionate of course, if you're an advocate of something, you're passionate about this thing, and you have the drive to continue speaking up for it. Advocates are also reasonable because they make sure what they're advocating for is makes sense in the society that we're given. And lastly, they're communicators. All effective advocates are good communicators and are capable of speaking speaking what they stand up for effectively. So yes, Ali.
All right. Before anything else, by the way, the forms of advocacy mentioned a while ago are not to be discouraged at all. We just feel that advocacy isn't necessarily a one size fits all thing, and we hope that people from everywhere are able to find the best form of propagating advocacy in accordance with their circumstances, resources, and context and whatnot. Because yeah, we can't expect everyone to just practice like one form of advocacy. Because one of the beauties of advocacy in general is its diversity. Moving forward, that's we will now be discussing advocacy in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic and why, in our opinion, it's quite flawed, or rather, how its main some of its problems and how we can better it. So, all right. The quarantine has granted a good amount of us the luxury of time that has allowed us to create and ideate for different causes. Over the course of the last few months, many issues and events have sparked various feelings inside us, be it be it the COVID-19 pandemic response of our government itself, the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement against the anti-terror law as a whole, and other government policies and actions that have been taken not only by our government itself but also by governments around the world. So these issues and these events have sparked various feelings inside of us, which all urge us to do something about the status quo. This is especially evident in the increased prevalence of online activism, as this is the most accessible and for most the only option or form of activism that they can practice given their current circumstances. So before we move on, I'd like to ask the audience again, what do you think online activism is, and what do you think of online activism? Like a definition, so basically a definition of online activism in your perspective, and what you think of online activism as a whole. Infograph, IG story, IG carousels, IG takeovers, woo, tweets galore, change.org, card, oh my, can easily get, yes, sharing of, okay, these are so, okay, yes, share, petitions, IG change stories, reaching grassroots way harder needs to be balanced with grassroots action. Keep them coming, I agree with all of you. DP, I know you saw my story. These are all very, yes. I'm right off the bat, I'm very excited to be speaking about this topic with all of you because you guys have very interesting and similar perspectives on online activism as a whole. Hard to get out of echo chambers. That is very true. Getting the entirety of so mad with one subtweet. Um, Personally, starting hashtags but not caring about the movement a month after, like months after the hashtag stopped trending. Moving forward. So yeah, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Yeah. So I guess we all have similar impressions to online activism. We think that it's pretty surface level. We think that it's pretty performative. It's really easy to become performative, and we think that it's not really, it's not really an effective form of activism. Oh wait, there are some more responses. They're pretty long, or at least relatively longer than the previous ones. In my case, it happens when mutuals disseminate information about issues, especially those which are relevant to share, but I sometimes think it only appeals to echo chambers we are in, although it makes some degree of impact. Though I think online activism can maybe only go as far as spreading awareness, but actual change can only be done physically or through proper channels. So
Very
yeah,
true.
to synthesize everyone's responses, generally we have this idea that online activism can get easily performative. It can easily be non ineffective in general because it can only do so much. Like you can only create so much posts, you can only share so much posts and whatnot. So yeah, with that said, In attempts of concretizing these efforts, a lot of students have decided to start online organizations that advocate for some things, or all of them at once. Please move to the next slide, Gabby. So yeah, take a look at this. Take a look at this bingo and tell us if you recognize anything, if you recognize some common tropes that you've been seeing in these different organizations, because we will be delving into this further. So yeah, this is the organization PH org bingo. Later we will be plugging this group because this is the space for us to shitpost about org culture, the toxicities of org culture as a whole. So basically, like, these orgs and online activism in general can be oh that that okay, that is okay, yeah. So online activism and PH orgs in general can be encapsulated by the following: webinar series, more effort on design than the content, now recruiting pubs, really long and blown out recruitment seasons, posts about how to protect your Facebook account or any like super trending issue that you don't get back to after it's trending, an 8-page org primer, partnerships with 30 members who need to like our page .ph, but for your Instagram URLs and not websites. Because when have you ever seen a youth org that has how many youth org websites do you see? Non-stock, non-profit, non-government, cute DP frame blasts on Facebook, vision missions with many words that mean nothing at all or are very unclear and confusing. The the adamant hate for cancel culture, spreading awareness, which we will get to later, a big Filipino word with deep meaning for a title, pride posts, but no LGBT people in leadership, or actual posts about Free Pride 20, Free Pride 20, activists to be inspired by, but no Filipino activists in that post series when the organization is supposed to be led by Filipinos. Okay, yes, it's you guys can see the bingo, and there are so many more. There are so many more examples, but if we if we continue to elaborate on these, we're not going to have any more time to talk about the main talking points of this workshop. So while the preliminary notion ad- of starting youth orgs and online activism is almost always admirable, these initiatives are unable to create tangible impact for the advocacies slash communities they care about, whereas some of these don't even have specific advocacies or communities to serve at all. So we're moving on to this part called the dangers of making spreading awareness as your primary and only mission. So before anything else, ask yourselves, why must awareness be spread and to whom should this awareness reach? Can your target audience get the awareness slash resources you're trying to spread without your initial advocacy plan? Because a trend that I've been noticing and a lot of people have been noticing in general is that a lot of these youth orgs always focus on making posts on issues, explainer posts on issues, when these explainers can be found on news sites and like other individuals who don't need to org to make their practices or organizational just to like spread awareness and all of that. There's nothing completely wrong with wanting to spread awareness. Like let me just establish this early on because it is a very valid and necessary step one way or another. But the current environment is oversaturated with people and groups whose only mission or purpose or goal is to spread awareness and nothing more after doing so. So spreading awareness is the first step in advocacy. It is far from the last. That Three actions that are upheld by all national democratic mass organizations, regardless of which mass org in general, are the words arouse, organize, and mobilize. Most to further define this, arouse is to, yes, make people aware of the status quo, make people angry that the status quo is like this, make people feel that yes, we need to take action. But then, like I said, a lot of us just stop at arouse. A lot of us just stop at like feeling angry at being aware that we're angry, and we don't do anything. We don't do anything more from that degree. So what we need to keep in mind is that we need to organize. So get into groups with people who share the same mindsets, who share the same advocacies, and to mobilize in attempts of propagating concrete action that can actually help the advocacies we truly do care about. So yeah, an oversaturation. So a while ago I was touching upon the oversaturation of information, which is something that stems from the prevalence of youth orgs and online activism today, because while an an oversaturation of information isn't really inherently problematic, it plays a huge part in overshadowing more concrete slash legitimate concerns and initiatives. Because if we only focus on like, oh, what's happening now, and so many posts, and focus on so many posts that explain the status quo, but not do anything else from there aside from like liking and sharing and like getting angry for a minute, but like really just not doing anything after, it isolates us from the from the real purpose of caring for these advocacies and issues. Because we have, every once in a while we have to ask ourselves, why do we care about these advocacies? Why are we so angry in the first place? Are we angry for the sake of looking better on social media? Are we angry because we feel that if we're not angry we're bad people? Or yeah, we just generally need to evaluate why and how we care about different advocacies and issues as a whole. So another thing, and the last thing for the dangers of spreading awareness as our primary mission, is that this gives way to reducing the issue into a platform for privileged people to intellectually debate on things that don't affect them, instead of giving the attention to the primary stakeholders. Because a while ago a lot of people mentioned stuff about echo chambers, and that is very true. Because we, especially in in social media, where a lot of people share the same opinions but don't really do the organizing, mobilizing, and like just thinking about concrete action part, they use these issues as avenues to prove to people who aren't as educated as they are, to prove that, oh, I'm better than you because I have more information on this issue. And instead of me actually sharing this information to you in a better manner, I'm going to prove to you and anyone who's watching that I know more about this, and I'm going to win this argument, even though we're not supposed to be making the plights of actual marginalized people basis for our arguments. So, moving forward, some principles to guide advocates on how to properly impact. Disclaimer: this is not this is not a definitive guide. This is based on patterns we've been observing and trends that we pretty much condemn, and there are other ways to do this. Because as I said a while ago, advocacy isn't just a one size fits all thing. So take these principles with a grain of salt. If you guys have any questions on it, please do raise them later on once we open the floor for questions. So first and foremost, find a core thing. Now, what does that mean? Basically, set a niche that then make your responses to general issues revolve around said niche. So to take example from Developh, we are niche. How do you guys pronounce niche? I say it niche. I don't say it niche. Is it niche? It doesn't have the accent. Niche. Okay. Niche. 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 I don't. Yes. Gabby, how do you pronounce niche? Niche.
Niche. It's
Niche.
niche, isn't it?
Niche. Okay, that's something we will be niche. 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 Ni-
Niche.
niche.
Leech. Is it not?
Niche. Niche. We have
It's
30
not.
messages on how do you even pronounce that
Cliche.
word? Quiche. Quiche. It doesn't have the accent that you usually use for like French
Quiche.
anyways. Quiche, niche. We have 36 messages. We have nearly 40 messages on how niche is
Telling us how to
pronounced.
pronounce it.
How to pronounce niche. So, what's advocacy to you?
Exactly.
Silence. Silence. How is this? How you taking a moment to document this masterpiece? Is it niche, niche, niche,
Niche.
niche?
It's niche, right?
That's something we can look onto once this panel ends. So, anyways, pronunciation.
Basta word.
Basta word. You guys know what you guys know whatever that word means, right? Like a core thing, something specific to you, something to narrow down how to ni- moving forward. So, yes. Anyway, set a core thing. So for example, going on let's go with the context of Develop. Develop is a technology or is an org that is an org that talks about and prioritizes technology. But as we've been trying to restate a lot of times, we are not just a tech org. We are an org that wants to focus on social impact, and social good. However, what sets us apart from a lot of other orgs, hashtag Develop is not like other orgs, is that we look at these issues in a technological perspective to see where is technology accessible, where is it not, how do we bridge these gaps, what will happen if we bridge these gaps, like how is it going to be impact, how are we going to impact communities in a social perspective if we make technology more accessible to the masses, like what does it matter to people if technology is made more accessible. Those are just some of the questions we'd want to answer. So yeah, basically for this point, find the core thing. Find the core thing. Don't find the core thing, and then based off how you respond, how you contextualize things. What's my core thing? Pronouncing niche. Pronouncing niche. Pronouncing niche. What's my core thing? She just What's my core thing? Anyways, and actually, I mean, this is how this workshop will be remembered by niche. How Well, okay, I'm actually going to answer that question pretty seriously because that is something I've been thinking about. But basically, like, as a Hume student, I would, what's niche in Tagalog? Who wants to be in a phil org with me called niche? Isabella, what is niche in Tagalog?
I don't speak Tagalog.
God bless you. Okay, I mean, like, okay, I'm going to shortly answer that question seriously because it is something to be thinking about. But then basically, I want to find the social science or Hume's perspective in every issue and like status quo possible. So also, Gabby, would you like to answer that question? What do you think your core thing is? Like, where do you revolve? Does your response for like different advocacies revolve around, if there's any? If
um,
there isn't any, I mean, like,
oh yeah. Mostly I'm still on the search, but then I am also focusing on women empowerment. And yes, of course, I want to hear what the audience feels like their core thing is, because yeah, that's very deep.
yeah. Okay, Gia,
About
go
you?
and share through the chat or through words. What existential crises at 4:39 p.m.
Yeah, it's 4:39 for me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like my core thing right now is to be able to make creation more accessible, which is essentially the goal of Develop. Because the way I think about it is the ability to like learn how to code and design at a really young age basically changed my life course. Um, Especially because we have so many tools and resources now to essentially make like anything happen theoretically. And if we make these tools and systems more accessible to more people, then we can solve a lot more localized problems. The problem right now with creation is that it's really only concentrated in like tech circles, and that like programming and design are still very elitist like industries and sectors. And if we can get more people to be able to learn those core things, then I think there's a lot more innovation that can happen.
Thank you so much for that, Gia. I believe Josh was also wanted to share something. So Josh, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And then Yeah, we can cap it to you na lang for like verbal responses,
Alright.
and then we'll just
So,
like take into account everything else. So yeah. Hello?
sure. Okay, so, okay, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So, first thing, I learned this kasi from like educational discussions that, yun nga, Karl Marx thought of like, you know that those triangles, wait, you know those triangles that have one base at the bottom and then there's two things on top of it. So wait lang, can I draw something? Who can
Um,
allow?
Okay. Wait, like on the
Wait,
screen?
yeah, because he said, uh, oh, it's okay. So I'll just draw it na lang. So there's this thing called base and superstructure, where Karl Marx was like, the economy is the base of like political and social activity. So it looks like this. Sorry if it's whack. So that's what the triangle looks like. And if we then start looking at the core thing, for me, it's probably giving people more economic power. Kasi if you give people more chance to actively participate in the economy, for example, making contractual workers regular, or making um making the wages higher, making the minimum wage higher, giving people social amelioration, giving them proper relief. So ayun, if you give people more economic power, which is right now, you know, giving people more power towards a more livable life in terms of economy, I think you get to start slowly solving the problems of a political and social divide. So, ayun, yun lang naman. That's my
all
core
right.
thing.
Thank you so much for that,
Thanks,
Josh.
Palmerx.
Someday we would love to hear you explain the thing about dialectical materialism, but let's talk about that some other time. Moving on to the next principle, don't try to advocate for everything. This is pretty much similar to the first point, which is to find the core thing. Because like once you find the core thing, you'll have an easier time to like not advocate for everything. This is not to be confused with selective attention to issues, because you can care about a lot of things, but you can't call yourself an advocate of everything just because you've had surface level exposure on or knowledge in a multiple set of things. Like all things in life, quality over quantity always. So yeah, find a find a primary set of find a primary set of advocacies. Focus on that mainly. Do do admirable and like do admirable and concrete work in those advocacies. And once you feel that, yes, if you have time, we can go over an hour. I think we will be extending for like 10 to 20 minutes. I hope that's fine with you guys, especially if you'd want to ask some if you'd want to ask some questions. But we will also be trying to quicken our pace. So like if anyone can stay until like 5, we can like go. We can go. So moving for so ayun. So yeah, basically find a primary set of advocacies to care about, to do work for, and then focus on that for the time being. You can still care about different issues. You can still care about a lot of different things, but you need to find you need to find a primary set. So next one, immerse yourself in the context of your chosen advocacies or partner communities. You and your goals are not supposed to be the priority. You must always keep in mind that your advocacy should always come first. So one way to immerse yourself is to really do research on the things you add, to really do like in-depth research and studying the on your chosen advocacies, especially if you want to implement a project. For say, if you want to implement a project for say, a specific marginalized community, you need to this this may arguably be common. This may arguably be common set in maybe common sense, but then like you need to prioritize what your community wants, how your community can benefit for whatever project you plan to implement for a marginalized community. And at the core of all things, you need to, yeah, basically just know what these advocacies or what these communities demand in general. Because if you're just implementing projects for the sake of it, and I do acknowledge that there are a lot of people who subconsciously or even more like consciously like try to put out projects for their own benefit in the guise of like wanting other communities or advocacies to benefit for it. And I just like to say that that's something that should be avoided at all times, because like there are other there are other platforms and avenues for you to like to maximize like your to maximize like self-serving interests, and it shouldn't be, and like advocacy in general shouldn't be the space for that. So moving forward, be realistic towards your projects. This will be further I feel like this will be further touched upon in our project management workshop, which will be coming in the next few assembly days. So tune into that. Hopefully you guys can attend that as well, if especially if you'd want to like put out projects of your own for like selected advocacies or communities. So set smart and clear goals to clarify like what these goals mean. These are basically like specific for smart goals. These are specific, these are measurable, these are achievable, these are realistic, and these are timely. And then for clear goals, on the other hand, these are collaborative, limited, emotional, appreciable, and refinable goals. We will be sending further resources on these um on these smart and clear goals after the workshop, if you guys would like to do some more readings on it. So yeah, yes. Moving forward, next, acknowledge that you cannot make impactful advocacies by yourself or alone. Like I said in the be realistic with your projects geared towards your advocacies, one of the pillars of the clear goals is collaborative. You cannot make impactful advocacies. You cannot make impact if you seek to just do things alone. If you seek to not like consider like the opinions of the masses at large or other stakeholders into account. Yeah, basically collectivizing and cooperating are keys to doing better as a whole for like these advocacies. Also in the advocacies you put out, especially if you're doing like project based ones with like different kinds of people, do consider their competence, their circumstances and their well-being as a whole. Because you know, you can't, if you don't have especially if you're doing advocacy projects in groups or through like organizations and everything, if you do not have a strong foundation, then it's likely that you won't be able to properly propagate or implement what is implement the projects you'd want to forward. So last one, and arguably the most important thing for me, you don't always have to start from scratch. What do I mean by this? Rather than starting your own thing, you can always join an existing movement or an existing organization and work your way up to help widen the movement. The thing about this is that I know that a lot of people start orgs by themselves, even though these orgs already have or are already even though that the advocacies of these orgs are already being better addressed by existing and more established orgs, people still choose to start their own thing, because like the status of foundership and like leadership as a whole is some are things that are very appealing to to a lot of people. So that's something to consider. But at the same time, we we have to consider that if there are existing movements, it will be better and it will be more effective for you and for the movement itself to participate in these existing movements, to further these existing movements, especially if they already have a prior reach. Because if you already have a prior reach, it's easier to maximize this and to actually like start from scratch and your own reach make your own reach. So before we move on to contextualize like how develop plays into plays into like uses these principles. Develop was created because there weren't a lot of Philippine organizations that tackled technology at all in the first place. And even then, existing tech orgs in the Philippines didn't provide a social good perspective or an avenue for technical workshops slash skill building, which was necessary considering the fact that stuff like design and coding and other technical skills weren't widespread in a Filipino context. Develop wants to make technology a bridge rather than a barrier to various opportunities. And through our different projects, events, and workshops, we have been working towards making technology accessible to all. So I give the floor again to Gabby.
So yeah, basically, it's summary of what Ali was saying. So Develop found a problem that there was a gap.
Hello, Gabby. I think she froze. Hello.
And since we're Develop was aware that there was a lack of resources and accessibility to these kinds of things. So yes, so to create projects, Develop has three core principles that they usually follow. So first is community. So Develop truly believes that technology is better with community. So through their projects, they aim to create to bring students together to create meaningful impact together. And yeah, there's also a Develop community on Facebook in order to do this. And next is innovation. So, especially in our age as young people, Develop believes that it's the best time to create innovations and create and learn through it. So, Develop creates opportunities for students to do so through their accelerators and such. And lastly, education. So, yeah, as mentioned earlier, there was a lack of education of like the basic things. So, Develop aims to like provide workshops and technical workshops that most technology orgs don't discuss. So, yeah, they aim to bring this to students easier. And some examples of what Develop has done, there is Colab and Iboto.ph. So this will be further discussed in the upcoming, like a second workshop like this, hosted by Chia and others. So they will dwell more on Develop's work and for our own work. Ali, do you want to?
All right. So yeah, so for as we said a while ago, we will also be touching upon some of our current projects and how some of our project some of our so, and how our projects touch upon our advocacies and slightly like core things. So on my part, founded and lead this project called Socially Distant Stories, which is essentially a student-led online platform that shares the stories and faces of the COVID-19 pandemic. So how this plays into my advocacies and me as a person, like how this fits in with like how I think it personally makes sense that I came up with something like this is that for quite some time and arguably maybe slightly until now I wanted to be a journalist, and I feel that journalism is built on the principle of valuing the sharing of stories from share from sorry again and I believe that journalism is founded on the principle that all stories should be shared. Stories from everywhere should be shared, and as much as possible we should be giving platforms for these stories, for different kinds of stories as for different kinds of stories to be seen and heard and read by others. So through socially distant stories, we are able to reach at least a thousand people through through our posts, through our submitted story posts that we post every week, and then aside from like external impact in general, socially distant stories is a project that has helped me connect better with the people that I work with. It's turned into a community where we can talk about where we can talk about our where we can meet and connect with each other on a more personal level. It's more for me. It's more than just a project with with like students that I know who are from my batch, but more of like a smaller and tight knit community where we can talk about anything. So, before I give Gabby the floor, I think I'd like to say that something about starting projects, organizations, initiatives, and whatever, something to consider is that how can the projects or initiatives or organizations you want to start can benefit you and your growth as a person. Because while it is admirable and it is necessary to focus on like how to impact the world the community at large, we have to consider that if we aren't being impacted by the things we start ourselves, then how can we ensure that our projects, that our ideas can impact other people as well. So yeah, moving forward, Gabby, I give you the floor for your other project, for your project.
So for me, currently I have a donation drive created by me and my friends. It's called Kayod para sa Galisod. We started during the COVID pandemic, and actually it's actually been so nice. In the first wave, we've gained like around 50,000, which is actually a lot for students like us. And we've impacted like around 150 families, which actually makes me so happy. Especially during COVID, I felt like there was not much I can do to help. And when me and my friends came up with this donation drive, we didn't expect that we would actually be able to impact a lot of people. It actually it actually motivates me more to keep doing keep doing this, since it's it actually makes me happy that to know that there are a lot of people benefiting from this. And currently we're in our second wave. It's called actually we're in the second wave. It's still called Kayod para sa Galisod. And except this time it's more on the people from the workers in my school in Pisay. So there was like obviously, so they don't have jobs anymore since we're not studying. So they're not getting any money, and we're aware of this, and we started the second wave and or dedicated to them, and it's still ongoing. So yeah, you guys could check that out. So reflection and conclusion. Ali, do you want to start?
Sure. Yes, I'm just responding to one of the questions in the
Oh, okay.
chat box. So yeah, truthfully, the notion of turning advocacy into impact is one that is extremely subjective and context-based. Like I said a while ago, advocacy is not a one-size-fits-all thing. There are a lot of ways to propagate advocacies effectively. There aren't really right or wrong answers, quote unquote, but there are better and not so better options. The insights we have shared with all of you today are simply guidelines and personal slash organizational values that have proved to be effective to us more or less. Keep in mind that there are infinitely many ways to turn your advocacy project into impactful ones, and the things we have suggested are not final or definitive, as we said a while ago. We look forward to how you all will be using the knowledge we have shared with you in your future endeavors, and we thank you again for listening to this workshop. So I give the floor to Gabby again, and after that, we can accommodate some questions and the plugging of your different projects if you guys have any.
So for me personally,
Gabby, you froze. Let's wait for her to unfreeze. Oh, as we wait for Gabby to unfreeze on Zoom, we can start looking on questions, and then she can reflect after we look through the questions. Keep in mind though that since she's not here yet. We may. Oh, okay. There. Oh, okay. Here you go. I'm going to be reading through. Oh no. right. So for these questions, we have a good amount, and I feel like uh we're still waiting for some more questions. So aside from Gabby and I, core members who are present and who would like to answer the questions can or will be imparting their knowledge as well. So hello. Hello, testing, testing. Okay, upvote questions you wanted to see. Okay, I think I can answer one of these questions because it asks for my thoughts. So both of your projects started during COVID. Do you have any thoughts on people starting projects capitalizing on the pandemic? I mean, okay, yeah, it's undeniable that there have been a lot of projects started during COVID, and it can be quite hard to to like determine like which of these were started out of like the genuine desire to start a project and the genuine desire to help, and which ones of these were started in order to like capitalize on events like these, because it undeniably is easy for like opportunists to maximize to maximize like to maximize events like these, because like there needs to be a lot there need to be a lot of different responses. So yeah, basically any thought, if you're asking me for thoughts on people starting projects capitalizing on the pandemic, I do not. I mean, I condemn. I do not. I am not in favor of those people generally, because like it's not that we should stop starting projects based on the COVID-19 pandemic, because as I said a while ago, there are people who genuinely want to help. There are people who genuinely want to start projects. But then generally, for anyone who wants to start projects, or for anyone, hello, hello, sorry, there was someone who was unmuted. Basically like thought general thoughts as it it is genuinely a case to case basis, because there are, like I said, I've been repeating, there are projects that are started out of the genuine desire to help people, and there are projects that are started to genuinely just capitalize on it. But my final verdict on this is to essentially just evaluate for who and for what are you doing these projects for, and as much as possible do your best to like not let like selfish or self-serving interests take over your desire to lead or to serve, because like while it is valid for like projects to be motivated by self-serving interests at first try, it shouldn't be the only reason, it shouldn't be the biggest reason. Like projects like these, especially those that revolve around advocacy and like relief giving, should be prioritizing those who need that relief, those who are affected by issues, and the advocacies in general. So I hope that question was answered, and I hope that Gabby can also answer, and so and hope that Gabby can answer that as well. So moving
Maybe I can
forward,
add to that also.
okay, go ahead.
During COVID, because I think it's easy to see that, like, especially if you've been someone who has been politically active in a lot of organizations beforehand, um, it's easy to easily assume that other people are just like hopping on a trend. But I think it's important to know about how this pandemic has really enabled a lot of people to participate and kind of rally against some social issues. That's why that led to civil protests, which was successful in North America. And everyone's grievances are kind of building up, especially with the government's non-responses to things. Um, Although people might not always be effective in executing, the intent is still there. So it's up to us to just like rally them and realize efforts correctly. But this is a great time to start building things, and it's a great time for people to start educating themselves. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Actually, that yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the mindset that you're just hopping on a trend, but then the trend is supposedly for the betterment of others. I think that's a good trend to hop on.
All right. Thank you for that, Chia. One of our core members, Isabella, will be answering that question. Will be answering a question through chat, and we will be reading that out. Now that Gabby is back. Now that Gabby is back. Oh wait. Analogous to the revolutions recorded in history, do you think modern example, Jose Rizal as the spark to the Filipino Revolution, Corazon Aquino as the face of the people power revolution. Do you think modern advocacy has to have a face to efficiently impact society? Oh, I'd love to answer this question, and I would be open to answering this like right after Gabby if she wants to say something about the first question about like the any thoughts on people starting projects to
Oh, okay.
capitalize on the pandemic.
So personally, I don't think it's entirely wrong unless they're actually trying to help out. But what I don't actually really like is how people are capitalizing on the pandemic when um actually the pandemic uh impacts a lot of people, and yeah, there are a lot of project ideas basing on the pandemic. And yeah, if it benefits people, I would say go for it actually.
All right, okay. Apologies to that last question, but we will be to that one reason question. But since we have the poliv thing, which I'll just send again if you guys have if you guys have more questions. Oh, there you go.
Read
There's
out
a
the question.
poll thing, so just send in the questions there. So there's this one question. There's this next question. How do you come back from having failed certain organizational activities? I feel I'm going to step away from this question. I'm going to step away from this question first because I do know that core members in here right now may have better and more substantial answers for this, especially if they have had like
Mhm.
more long-term projects where they have been able to experience like failures in certain org activities.
So Chia wants to moderate the Q&A.
Wait. Um. So are there any are there any core members?
Isabella said something.
Yeah, but this isn't
Maybe we
for
can
the
first start with the how do you know if you should make an org or project to address a certain issue? I know both of you kind of made organizations to address the issues that you viewed in the pandemic. Maybe you can talk about your thought process on why you ended up making um, an entire organization around it. Maybe also talk about the distinction between project and an organization in your terms. So maybe Ali and Gabby, one of you can start talking about this in the context of your organizations that you founded.
Oh, sorry. Which question is this in the polyp because we weren't
Okay,
really able.
let me reread the question. How do you know you should make an org or a project to address a certain issue? As in, should
Ah,
my response to this issue be creating an org or creating a project? And maybe your
oh,
approach
okay.
to this can be what to you is the difference between an issue that necessitates an org or a project? And what was your thought process in putting together your organization?
Okay,
Okay, all right. Um,
I'll go
yeah,
first.
that's a good question. Basically, if type me twice. How do you know if you should make an org to or a project to address a certain issue? In my opinion, and again, this isn't like hello, hello. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Gabby, would you want to answer this question first?
Okay, sure. So for me, Ali, you'll follow, right? So
Oh
for
my gosh,
me,
unless like okay na yun sa'yo.
Okay, so for me, actually it depends on this. Of course, it depends on the certain issue that you're focusing on. So when it comes to an org, it obviously contains like an issue that is like needs more like a long term kind of thing and more in depth process. And when you're creating a project, it's more of like um a more specific thing, and usually projects are more short term. And yeah, that's actually my take on it. So yeah, basically it depends on the issue that you're trying to address, and orgs are more on long term kind of things in my opinion, and projects are more on short term and specific things. How about you, Ali?
I think that's pretty much what I was going to say. Like your responses to different issues really depends on like the context of the issues, or like or like the context and the characteristics of the issues. Because like personally I feel like for to make an org, because that's going to require a lot of commitments, it needs the the issue at hand should be something that's should be something that's something that's really recurring, something that you need to repeatedly address in different ways, and that can be best done through an organization. For projects, while there are a lot of different definitions for projects, they're usually like smaller scale, like usually relatively smaller in comparison to like organization scale responses to issues that can be dealt with once or if once or a few times. But then again, yeah, basically like what you said, Gabby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those are great answers. Um, Maybe we can go to discussion. So, how often do you do activities such as team building meant to help prevent burnout and improve the members' dedication towards the project initiative? And what factors do you generally consider for that? So, do you guys institute any team building activities for your organization?
For socially distant stories, we're trying to like integrate like check-ins and like meetups like quite regularly, so like we can check on each other like on a personal level, because we do know each other of outside of these organizations. But I do acknowledge that they're not as wide scale team building activities as people would expect them to be, because again because it depends on like the size of your organization, and like how it depends on the size of your team building activities heavily depend on the size of your organization, because you'll definitely find yourself addressing team building and community concerns based on the size of your organization. And oh, I
Yeah,
forgot to read this part from Pao, which addressed the previous question. Choosing to start an org involves much more work to cement a long-term impact as compared to starting a donation drive or campaign for a sudden emergency or need. That's a very good point, and I completely agree. Thank you for that. Gabby?
so for me, for team building, yeah, it depends on the size of your organization. For mine, this in the donation drive, we're actually just very small, and we're actually a group of friends. So if I relate it to the context of my organization, we don't usually need team building. But if you guys are not entirely like familiar with each other, I think team building is definitely important in order to create like a better team and management, so the organization or project could last longer.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think in Develop, especially since we've been a remote organization for a while, and we started out physical, we really had to run a bunch of like team building activities to bring people together and kind of nurture a sense of community again. So actually the community game nights we host where we just like play jackpot games or Scribbler or other browser games that we now open to like the community are a pretty good example of these events that we host at least once or twice a month. Um, Not strictly team building, but then we also do these things where we host like open work sessions where we literally just open up our calendar in a Zoom room for like hours several times a week. So like maybe like 3 out of 7 days a week, where we'll just work together, be it on schoolwork or actual developed things. So yeah, I think it really just depends too on the kind of community and culture your organization has. So I think this question is pretty relevant, especially to Gabby. Um, do you have any tips on how to organize projects, especially given the current pandemic and how it's not safe for us to go outside and travel, especially on the logistics side? So maybe you can give some advice on how you ran your the Kid Virus of Elisa programs.
So, my advice for people who are running projects through the COVID pandemic, yes, I am aware there are a lot of limitations due to quarantine and social distancing rules. And what we did, we communicated through, our usual platforms. We used Messenger, but if you feel the need to use better platforms, then go ahead. But for us, we used our, like, I wouldn't say connection, since not a lot of people have that, but we asked the people who we could go up to, like our parents and the people we know outside, to buy the groceries and basically for the travel and the distribution of the goods, since we're aware that it's not safe to go outside. And so we have to make use of those people that are capable of doing who are capable of going outside and doing the things that we need to. That's all.
All right, thank you for that.
Oh.
All right, thank you for that, Gabby. As much as we'd love to answer more questions, we are going going incredibly over time. So we can look through these questions, and if we can look through these questions, and we can try our best to answer them and relay our answers to them in any medium possible. So yeah, we're drawing to the close of our workshop. I'd like to thank everyone for the insights and questions they raised for the questions and insights they raised during the interview rather, sorry, this workshop rather. And as we said a while ago, we will be trying our best to answer these questions, preferably through the um Discord server. So stay tuned to that. Before we before we end this work before we end this workshop, I'd like to plug Develop's new in-house initiative called Cause.ph. It's something I am co-directing along with Gia, and it is an upcoming hub for youth organizations. Our first project is to launch a directory of different organizations spanning across different advocacies and missions. So stay tuned to that. We are looking to we are looking we are currently on the look for different co-directors for our different projects, which include our consultancy services for organizations, our publication, and other important organizational qualities and spaces. So do feel free to send us an email at hello@cause.ph, or the we develop email or the we develop email. I will be sending the necessary emails in case any of you are interested in applying. Know that if any of you are interested in applying, we also have a recruitment form. We have a recruitment form, so you can best reach us through there. So I will be sending that. And another assembly related reminder would be that the General Assembly is no longer happening this tonight at 8 p.m. Instead, it will be moved at on August 15th. So stay tuned to that. We hope you guys can still attend to that to our main assembly. And with that in mind, also, since the main assembly is getting moved, the talent show that was supposed to follow after the main assembly will also be moved to the ne- to the 15th. So I hope to see all of you there. And before I yeah, thank you so much for staying with us for an hour or so. I will be sending the cause recruitment form and and the necessary emails, and then you guys can start plugging any projects, orgs, advocate, or initiatives that you guys would want us to take note of.
Join Develop Core.